July 28th, 2016, my life took a different turn. It was a hot and cloudy morning, and I biked to the public library in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Earlier that morning, I had just finished my shift as a bartender at 3 a.m., so I felt lightheaded and exhausted. I looked over at the time on my iPhone and realized that I was going to be late to meet up with my student again, so I pedaled harder on the bike. My thoughts accelerated with the speed of the bike. I thought about the event that I was putting together a month from then, and despite our team effort of reaching out to hundreds of organizations, we were still $10,000 short of funding. I thought about my business partner who had recently informed me that she was backing out and she owed $8,000 on our combined business credit card and could not pay it any time back soon. Then I thought about the difficult relationship I was in, and I had no one to talk about because everyone close to me judged me negatively because of it. Just then, I noticed the curb in front of me. I must have made some wrong calculations in my head because the next moment, as my bike wheel hit the curb, I went flying into the air. I landed on the concrete hard on my chin. Suddenly, there was blood everywhere, and I was terrified. Luckily, there was a really nice lady across the street who saw this. She called 911 for me right away. An ambulance came. They rushed me to the hospital emergency room. On my way to the hospital, all of my negative emotions and fears came rushing out of me. I questioned myself over and over. Why? Why did this happen? Is my face going to be disfigured? Is my career as a beauty pageant queen over? Are my bones broken? Am I going to be able to put together the event? Am I going to fail my team? And am I going to fail as a leader? That afternoon, they put 5 stitches on my chin. No broken bones. They released me on the same day. On the outside, life went on as normal, and I healed fairly quickly. I went on to put together the event, paid it with a big chunk of my own savings, was able to pay my employees. But only I knew on the inside, I was so broken. I was so broken to the point that I stopped sleeping, that I cried uncontrollably at all times. What did I do? I buried myself in more busy work. That following year, I got the great news that one of my startup projects made it into the second round of a startup accelerator out of thousands of applications. It was a dream almost coming true. Except it was also the same time that I went through a devastating breakup, and I went a whole week without any sleep. Because of my physical and mental condition, I had to turn down this opportunity, and I cried more after that. Now, to understand how I reached the rock bottom of my life, I'm going to invite all of you back on a journey with me to the rise of my life, and then I will show you how I rebuilt my life afterwards. In 1999, my parents brought me to the US from China. As a 10-year-old, I was so excited about this new world with new language, new culture, and new people surrounding me. Soon, I started 5th grade. I noticed that I was 1 out of 3 Asian kids in the entire school. And teachers and classmates treated me really nicely. They treated me like a baby because I couldn't really communicate with them. And my classmates let me copy their notes. Other than playing with some other kids occasionally during recess at the playground, I mostly made friends with cartoon characters on TV and computer games. Life kind of went on smoothly for me for most of the fifth grade until toward the end of the school year. My teachers called my parents in. They told my parents that I should stay back because I was failing most of my classes. Gosh, that was a big blow to me because I had always been a really good student back in China, and I couldn't really come to accept the fact that I was failing school. So I decided I didn't want to stay back. And as I struggled to read my first chapter book, Maniac McGee, I recall my dad sitting with me every night, looking up every single vocabulary with me together and reading paragraph after paragraph and chapter after chapter in the book with me. This had really inspired my passion and love for reading, and I went on to read throughout my fifth grade summer. When sixth grade started, I didn't expect much, but I was so grateful for two things. One was my first best friend. She's a really tall and nice American girl. The second thing was when I got my first report card. I got all A's. Wow, that completely blew my mind because only a couple of months ago, I was a failing student. So I went on to read and write a lot throughout my middle school years. And in this picture you see up here in the right top corner, these are some of the original manuscripts I wrote by hand from back then, about 20 years ago. And I have kept my habit of journaling ever since I was 10 years old as well. So you can see lots of journals piling up here. So the happy time of middle school soon ended, and I entered high school. We moved to a new town. Interestingly, it was called Reading. It's spelled the same way as reading. I loved reading and I loved writing. So in high school, I thought it was going to be the same as middle school until I got my first biology exam back. I got a 66 staring me right at my face. I was scared again. Am I going to fail high school? Am I going to bring shame to my family? You see, as an Asian immigrant kid, it's a standard and a must that we are good students. We get good grades, get into good colleges, and get into a good profession when we graduate. So I started having doubts about myself and started thinking if I was stupid. Because I knew that I had to put my focus back into my academics, I stopped spending time in my favorite hobbies of reading and writing. I signed myself up for the hardest classes possible. Even though I hated math, I took AP Calculus. So eventually I was able to graduate in the top 10% in my high school graduating class and got into Brandeis University. There I studied economics and went on to study in the International Business School for graduate school. My favorite experience during college was actually my study abroad experience in Barcelona, which is in the photo on the bottom left-hand corner. This is a picture of me in Barcelona back in 2011. This experience had really opened my eyes up for the world. And ever since, I was so eager to see the rest of the world. Soon after graduation, just as I was so eager to play the role of a good student, I went on to play the role as a good employee. I started working at an international education startup in 2012, and I was really grateful for the opportunity to work with lots of international students, especially those in crisis. Throughout the 2 years with the company, I grew with the company from 50 employees to 500 employees, and also built 2 teams to more than 10 people during my time there. One of the years, we served 1,000 international students. It was a really exciting time. During this time, I was also able to pay back all of my student loans, and save up a lot of money. So in 2014, it was the first time in my life that I thought I could finally do something for myself and be someone just for myself and not for anyone else. I decided to enter myself into a beauty pageant. You have to understand, before 2014, I had never worn makeup, and I've never worn a pair of high heels in my life. And being a beauty pageant queen, every week I traveled from Boston to New York on weekends while working at least 60 hours a week in my full-time job. I trained by wearing 6-inch high heels and keeping my smile for hours at a time. And we also had to be camera ready because this beauty pageant was with a TV station. It was a super exciting time because I got to interview a lot of people, a lot of community leaders. And to my surprise, and I was super honored to have won second place at the grand final at the end of the summer. After that, I had more opportunity to travel around China and also in New York to do lots more TV shows. This was definitely one of the highlights in my life. After the experience of being in a beauty pageant, I started to think, can I bring this opportunity to more young women in my community? So I decided the following year to quit my full-time job and found my own startup and give more young Asian women in my community an opportunity on the stage. That year, we started from zero again. From no one on the team, no funding, no contestants, no sponsors. In a span of a few months, from May to September, when we held the grand final, we were able to put on a great show. We had 1,000 audiences show up. We had 10 excellent contestants. They were mostly pursuing their master's degree at a top institution, and most of them have since went on to found their own fashion startups and to perform on TEDx stages. One of the pictures you see here on the top left-hand corner was the first press conference we put together for this event. We had lots of Asian medias in the community reporting and supporting us as well. And the picture on the top right-hand corner is one of my favorite pictures of our contestants. This was during a volunteer opportunity that we arranged for them at the Acadia National Park to protect the environment by sweeping away the leaves and preserving the river flow. And they were super happy and jumping up and down in this picture, and we were able to capture that. So the following year, I became more ambitious and wanted to put on even a more innovative beauty pageant. I wanted to transform the beauty pageant industry. So that following year, I put on a show that was completely outdoors, worked with sustainable clothes designers and florists. And you can see it in some of the bottom pictures here. That was, though, in 2016. And as you can see from the pictures, I looked happy, successful. However, that was actually the same time when the bike accident happened. Because also around the same time, I was pursuing lots of other things. Because I bragged to some of my friends that I was going to travel to all 59 national parks within 1 year. I was driving on the road a lot that year. Because of that bike accident, I ended up visiting 13 national parks instead of 59 national parks that year. And some of the pictures you see here were taken at the beautiful Great Smoky Mountains. And that was the time that I started to question myself. Because I had so much freedom and so many possibilities in my life that I wanted to experience everything. But at the same time, I had lost my priority and my focus. And that was when, in the beginning of the story, where my life spiraled out of control. So after deciding to not take the opportunity to continue with my startup, I thought really hard. It was time for me to focus again. And this time, it was to work on my physical wellness. I knew I had to become stronger physically and to be healthier, so that when big things happen again in the future, I will be able to be there and say yes to the opportunities that I really wanted. In 2017, I had the honor to join one of the most competitive dragon boat teams in Boston. Dragon boat, so for those of you who might not have heard about dragon boat racing, it's a part of the Dragon Boat Festival tradition, which is a tradition from thousands of years ago in China. It's a holiday to celebrate a poet who had given up his life for his country. And as a dragon boat racer, we paddle on a 22-person boat. In this picture right here, I'm actually in this a second to last row, so it's kind of hard to see. Our boat, this is a big event that we have every year. So there are about 80 boats that compete every year. And some of our other teams have been first place winners of this race throughout the 2017 to 2019. And I paddled on the women's team, which what we did was every year we trained for half a year and we practiced for 3 times a week, 2 hours each week, whether that's in 40-degree storm or 90-degree heat. And in 2019, we were so proud to have made history as the first women's team to make it to Division A. So that means we beat up more than 60 other mixed teams. In my experience paddling as a drag racer, this experience had taught me incredible teamwork, discipline, and persistence that I had lacked previously in my life. So I find this really valuable, and through this experience, I have not only gained more strength physically, but also mentally. And after I hit the rock bottom of my life, something else I worked on was being a better friend. I connected more with my different social groups and shared more with my close friends about my feelings instead of bottling up like I used to. I also continued to travel a lot, which was one of my passions ever since I went to Barcelona in my graduate school. And here, because of the pandemic, we can't really travel anymore, and I can't really visit a lot of my friends. I worked on being a calm person. I developed my morning and evening rituals. My morning ritual is making breakfast, and the picture on here is one of the breakfasts I made. And my evening ritual is to journal, and that's something that I have been doing for most of the past 2 decades in my life. And by keeping my rituals, I was able to stay calm during this difficult time and also provide more emotional support to those around me. Now I wanted to share with you something called the 8 dimensions of wellness. You might have noticed that in the previous slides, I had a different colored circle, which corresponds to a different dimension of wellness that I had done in a different phase of my life. And honestly, I didn't know about the 8 dimensions of wellness until recently. And thinking back, before I hit the rock bottom, I had completely ignored at least 3 of the dimensions of my wellness throughout my life up until that point. And I wanted to share with you this today because being aware that we have these 8 dimensions of wellness really helps us put our priority in perspective and help us balance out the different areas of our lives so we can live a more calm and balanced life. Now, I will tell you a little bit more about what each dimension of the wellness mean, and then I will share with you briefly about what I have been working on this year before I'm going to let you go and write out what you have been doing in each dimension of your wellness. So let's start with the spiritual one. Your spiritual wellness is expanding a sense of purpose and meaning in life. And for me, that was something that I had really started working on this year, keeping my morning and evening rituals. And your emotional wellness is your ability to cope effectively in creating satisfying relationships. And what I did was to open up myself more to those that are close to me. And financial wellness is your satisfaction with your current and future financial situation. Your intellectual wellness is your willingness to expand knowledge and skills and your creative abilities. And occupational wellness is the satisfaction that you derive from whether that's your work, school, or volunteer. Your social wellness is a sense of connection, belonging, and support system you have. So these are the friends and coworkers you talk with on a daily or weekly basis. Your physical wellness is your physical activity or the exercise you do, what kind of food you eat, and how much and the quality of the sleep that you have. And finally, your environmental wellness is something that supports your well-being, whether that's your social, living, work, or your natural environment. And in our current situation, a lot of us, maybe we have the same social living and work environment. So that's actually something to be more aware of. What kind of environment are we surrounding ourselves? So like I mentioned in some of the examples before, so some of the specific examples for me are my environmental wellness. I try to go to the state parks around me, although I can't travel very far right now. We can't really fly on planes or anything. And I love to go biking on the lakeshore path. And my physical wellness, I exercise on this app because I can't really go to the gym anymore, but I know that I need to continue to build my strength and do yoga. So there are some free apps out there that really do a great job. So one of them that I use is called the Nike Training Club, or the NTC. And also for my physical wellness, I make sure that I eat 3 meals a day and I eat regularly. And getting enough sleep is so important to me because in the past I had gone without sleep for, the worst was like a week. So that was definitely not something I want to experience again. So I'm making sure that I do get enough sleep every day so I can function. So these are some of the examples that I have been working on, and now I wanted to give everyone an opportunity to sort of take some time to think about each dimension of your wellness that you have been working on or you would like to work on in the future. So I'm going to be sharing with you a worksheet. You can also take out a pen and a piece of paper to draw this out. So I'm going to take a moment and pull up the link to share with you the sheet. So here in the chat section, I'm sharing a link with you where you have an access to the worksheet where you can type out each of your dimension of wellness. Some of the things to consider are you want to make sure that you are including 2 to 3 specific action items in each of your dimension. What exactly have you been doing to make sure you're maintaining or improving your wellness in that area? And I do want to give you some time, so I am going to actually time you here. So for each dimension, I'm going to give you 1 minute to think about it and then something down. And know this, it doesn't need to be perfect. You can change it and adjust it anytime. And during this time, if you have any questions, please type it to me in the chat. I will try my best to respond to everyone. So let's get started here. Okay, so we're starting here, and I will remind you every minute so you can move on to your next one. And you can start with any dimension of your wellness. I see someone saying that this is blocked by my IT department. Okay, so maybe something you can try is if you do have a piece of paper or a pen, you can just jot down you can just draw your own circles or write down what you can think about right now. Okay, now it's time to move on to the next one. Okay, we have a couple more seconds here. And if you're ready, you can move on to your third circle. If you feel stuck or confused or anything, feel free to let me know. Okay, you can go on to the next one. And I will be asking a few of you to share what you have put down later in our workshop. So if this is something that you want to share, you can start thinking about that now. Okay, now we're ready to move on to our fifth dimension of wellness. Okay, next one. And we only have 3 left. So this exercise here is a foundation that we are putting down. So in the next one that we are moving into, this is going to be really helpful. Okay, next one. Thank you, Alice Dang. Thank you for your comment. I'm glad that you find this helpful. Great, and now we are down to our last dimension of wellness. So just 1 more minute here for everyone to wrap up, and then we will move on to the next exercise that's going to be built on top of this one. Okay, time is up. I hope everyone had an opportunity to try to fill out your each dimension of your wellness. And next one, we're going to talk about how to effectively improve your 8 dimensions of wellness using the 5 circles of priority. And the reason that I myself use this model, the 5 circles of priority, is that it could be overwhelming when you have 8 different dimensions that are staring at you and demanding something out of you. It might make you feel a little bit overwhelmed, that you feel like, oh, I have to, work on all of them, and how do I prioritize them, and which one should I work on first? So these might be some of the questions that you have for yourself, like I had for myself. So next, I would like everyone to spend another minute on identifying your priorities. So 1 dimension of your wellness, and that's something you want to focus on this month in August 2020. And the suggestion is that think about this as maybe the first thing you're going to be doing in the morning or when you have the most energy throughout the day. So this is definitely something that you're working into your schedule, and you're not going to be pushing it aside for something else. And also think about putting 2 to 3 specific action items into this dimension of wellness so that you know exactly what you will be doing. So an example from me is that currently I'm focusing on my physical wellness, and the specific action items I have are exercising on this Nike Training Club app. By doing yoga on it. Actually, just before our session this morning, I did one of the yoga sessions on there. It's called, I think, Rise and Flow. That's really helpful to kind of ground myself and make me feel calm. And also do strength training on there. Although, in the gym, we have a lot of equipments there. We can, lift much heavier weights, but using the app also at least helps you maintain your certain degree of physical wellness. And then every day I do cook and try to sleep the 7 to 8 hours. So this is my example. So when you're working on your example, think about the specific items that you want to include that you will be doing here. Okay, one more moment here, and then the next step, and I apologize that it looks like the format is a little bit off here, but I will try to explain it verbally so you can understand what I'm putting down here. So the next step is for us to identify 2 other areas of our wellness that we want to work on, and I'm calling this the secondary because you want to make sure that you have already worked on your priority, or you're saving your most energy for your priority, your focus, and then going into the next 2 areas that you want to work on. So these are things you want to plan into perhaps your daily schedule. But knowing that each of us is different, we structure our day maybe a little bit differently, so definitely do it in a way that works best for you. For me, my secondary focus is the 2 areas are my emotional and occupational wellness. Emotionally, I continue to try to share how I feel with my family and close friends. And I do go to monthly therapy to talk with my therapist about some of my emotional traumas or things I experienced in the past. And occupationally, I work in the UW-Madison, and I serve international students. That's something that makes me feel it's meaningful. And I'm also a crisis counselor at the crisis text line, where I serve texters who are in crisis. And I spend 4 hours each week doing that. So these are some of the things you are also spending your time and energy on. Okay, I'm going to give you a couple more moments to finish up on this one before we go to our next slide. Okay, so next are your last 2 areas of your wellness that you want to also work on, and I call this your tertiary focus, where you're maybe planning these into your weekly schedule. These might not be things that you're spending time on every day, maybe every other day or once a week. And for me, that's taking online classes. This is for my intellectual wellness and also environmental wellness, to be out there in the nature more. And actually, a couple of days ago, I just moved. So I used to live in downtown Madison. Now I'm moved into a more residential area with a park right nearby. So it's, to me, environmentally, this is a more supportive working and living space. Yes, all handouts will be included on the website post-session. Thank you. So take a moment to identify your next 2 areas. And this is just for this month, August. So if you decide to keep the 5 circles of priority from month to month, or every couple of months, or even half a year, your focus, your priority is going to shift. And sometimes maybe this month I'm working on my physical wellness. Next month I'm working on my occupational. You can switch these and you can swap it with the other 3 dimensions of wellness that you're not putting into these circles. But having a priority and also your secondary, tertiary focus, it really helps you visualize the things that you're planning to work on every day and every week. So I will give you 1 more minute to wrap this up, and I do want to invite maybe 2 to 3 of you to share your circles of priority, or how anything that you've put down so far, if you're up for it. Okay, now if you're ready, please raise your hand if you want to share this. And yes, Heather, thank you for sharing this, or type it into the chat. Great. Great, so Heather is sharing that her priority is exercise daily in morning, walking, biking, stretching, and no screens in the evening, keep the temperature cool in bedroom. So these are really great examples. These are very specific and actionable items. And Jenny shared that my priority is healthy eating. Great. Awesome. I will give a couple more minutes if anyone else wants to share this, share their priorities. Great. I see Mary sharing that emotional, connecting more with friends, and Christine likes the idea of doing a weekly online class to flex the brain muscles. Awesome. And I see 1 hand that's raised. And sorry, please bear with me as I try to figure out how I unmute here. Oh, okay, so I think you can unmute yourself to share. Yes, thank you for pointing this out, Nancy. So I believe I saw a hand raised. So you can feel free to unmute yourself. Okay, so we will oh, yes. Please go ahead.
Hi. One thing that I do is to reach out to people while they are living, because often we wait until people are no longer with us to be kind to them. So as part of my emotional health, I connect with people that I like while they're alive, and I don't wait to go to their funerals.
Thank you so much for sharing this. And I see a couple more from the chat. Amanda is sharing that priority is occupational, be open, listen more, don't interrupt others, get a mentor, and find ways to volunteer virtually. These are great actionable items. And Amy is sharing that occupationally create a to-do list first thing every day. Very actionable and inspiring. And Julia sharing that intellectually sign up for a glass working class. Okay, I'm glad, Lori, that you love this. Prioritizing relationships from Nancy, take 1 day, week at a time. Great. Well, thank you all for participating in this and sharing it. So before we wrap up today, I'm going to share with you something I wrote. And then after that, if you have any more questions, please type in the chat. On July 28, 2016, a fall woke up my fear, unleashing all the negative emotions within me that had been bottling up for years and years, allowing them to swamp my life and bury me deep, deep down. That moment, I realized life is much more than pursuing happiness as portrayed by social media. Accepting and understanding the emotions and feelings as they come and go or come and stay, be it joy, sadness, fear, regret, jealousy, shame, vulnerability, love, pain, lets you see a much more beautiful and holistic world than the one presented to you by superficial happiness. It took me many more years to process it all, and then finally getting back on track in this thing called life. Let me slow down in my pursuit of happiness and my demand for the world to give me more, bigger, and better things. Instead, let me give, offer, share, and love. Let me take back my responsibilities, no matter how boring they are, because your true strength emerges when you give, not when you take. My world is filling up with colors again. Each day I am being, each day I am existing. I am no longer afraid of falling because sometimes the harder you fall, the stronger you rise. Now, I wanted to thank you all again for attending this session. And since we have a couple minutes left, feel free to ask me any questions you have here, or unmute yourself to, or raise your hand and unmute yourself to talk. Thank you. Thank you so much, Heather, and thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Lisa and Mary. Thank you, everyone. I'm glad that you found this helpful. Can you share the previous? Yes, Lori, is there a specific slide that you would like to see? I think we can make all the slides available after this session. I will be able to share this as a PDF file with everyone after our session. I believe it's going to be accessible on the website as well. Yes, yes, thank you, Nancy. Yeah, it will be up there on the website. Oh, okay, my poem, yes, here. It is here, and we will also have that on the website. That's a good question. Do you see where on the website? Yep, it will be under my session and think afterwards. Yeah, thank you, Nancy, for the explanations. Applied positive psychology. Interesting. I will check this out. Okay, I'm trying to go back to read some of the questions. I might be able to respond to some of the questions I see here. I see one from Megan. Do you have the text of your writing? I might be able to share this afterwards, and it will be on the PP. Okay, and this, does anyone else have any other questions? We will be ending the session